This is Midlife Virus, and I want to thank you for joining me today as we explore sexuality and the discussions that revolve around that very hot topic. One thing we are going to discuss today is the simple fact that orgasms do not discriminate, but they hate to be interrupted. Ha ha! That's my Fozzie Bear moment. But in all seriousness, let's continue with Midlife Virus. Warning! Adult content. Cover your ears, cover your children's ears, cover your dog's ears. Orgasms don't discriminate, but they hate to be interrupted. That was always my lead-in line, to my dad lecture, especially when it came up to sexuality, right? And so that's one of the things that you get to do as a parent, right? You get to discuss these things, and sexuality is something you got to discuss from early on. And so that wasn't the beginning sentence, of course, but when my kids started getting into puberty, when big questions started to happen, that was one of my first lead-ins, is that orgasms do not discriminate. And what I mean by that, where the lecture heads, is just a real quick black and white look at the world, right? It just animalistic and primal, procreation and the way the body and the biological systems of the world and our peers, relatives, and cousins in the animal world and everywhere, the insect world, all of it, how it just boils down to just some basic things: procreation and survival. And so when I look at human sexuality, I really boil it down to what do we have in common. And so what we have in common is a climax. That's one thing. You can start it there. Another thing is probably attraction. We can start it there. So we've got passion, attraction, all kinds of things begin. And so when you want to have a discussion about sexuality and what's going on, the discussion should be orgasmic. And what I mean by it should be orgasmic is that the discussion should not discriminate. Let's simplify the entirety of the thing, sexuality. Let's boil it down to its finer points, right? When people engage in sex, it ends in hopefully a mutual agreement and accumulation of passion, ending in a shared experience that requires both people to have an orgasm simultaneously. I just made that entire definition sound as unsexy as possible because that's the point. I wanted to keep the conversation unsexy just for a minute, right? So we can simplify it. Every person out there walking the planet, I can't say every, but most people out there walking the planet are going to arrive to some point in their lives where sexuality is a thing, where they're going to want to be wanted, they're going to want others, and they're going to want to connect. And that is primal. And so we give every person that dignity. You're like, okay, cool. In your genetic code, in your brain, code source number 1, you want to continue your DNA. Okay, we got that. So we all have that in common. We want to continue our line, our good traits, our sexy eyes and our pouty lips, our curly hair, whatever we got, that's a thing that we're trying to pass on, right? The essence of us within our DNA. So procreation and survival of your genetic code, that's number 1. Super simple, I know. Way to simplify sex and make me fall asleep. You might be thinking that right now, but you just got to simplify the conversation, because if you don't have conversations, people will insert emotions and fears, and they'll project all kinds of stuff, and they'll gaslight others. And so The quickest way to define things in life is by having discussions about things. And so that's what this discussion is going to be about. It's going to be about, well, if orgasms don't discriminate, if people's sexual attractions differ, how do all those things mesh in the public domain to which we exist? Because I think some of the finer points of sexuality has been skipped over in the public conversation. And so I just want to touch on those points and just kind of remind people, these are some worthy discussions to have in a shared conversation that happens to be titled Human Sexuality, right? Human sexuality. We all are sexual creatures. We all are humans. Even if you identify as a lizard, you know what I'm saying? You still identify with procreation. That's why earlier on I mentioned the planet and animals at large. That's all we do. That's how orgasms do not discriminate. You've seen the memes. You've seen the fishes, the freaking dogs, every animal out there connected, vibrating, going crazy. That's what we all have in common. So, number one, cannot discriminate on what we were made to do, and that's procreate. So we've got that thing out of the way. How about number two? Number two, our innate urge or feeling to be wanted, to be a sexual creature, for somebody to desire us. That is a very real part of our existence. You are raised in a family and people love you, and it's a given. Maybe not. But the perception is there is somebody who is going to love me. And then there's also another perception out there that there is somebody out there who is going to love me and want to squeeze my butt. And so with the added butt squeezing thing, that's pretty exciting. And so people are out there looking for that. Most people are out there looking for that sexual validation that they can be a sexual creature. And the reason why they're looking for that is because it supports number one, which is I want to continue on my DNA and all this cool stuff that's me. And so if somebody finds me attractive and they want to hook up, then that is amazing because I've just accomplished goal number one, right? So now I'm at goal number two. And so that is the exciting part that we also share. So do you see how sexual solidarity gets really, really cool, really, really simple, really, really fast? You just start talking to everybody and you start talking about what you're doing. So discussions are always important to have. You know, it's through discussions do we clarify what the hell's going on. Why you doing what you're doing? Why you dress the way you dressed? What is that smell? I think that's what's been lost in a lot of the interactions and what's going on. So I've been around a long time. Not forever, but I've been around a long time. And being a Gen X ninja, I was in the shadows throughout a lot of this sexual journey that we are experiencing now. So I am pre-PC. Gen X is pre-PC. It actually showed up when we were 19. Most of us, well, me, I was born in the middle, smack dab in the middle of Gen X. And so I am a mid-earth Gen Xer, I guess, born right in the middle. I am neither a elven kind that are more towards the boomers, nor am I a dwarf, brutish millennial. I'm kidding. No, I'm just a mid-earther, mid-Gen X, regular human with all my faults. And so I'm about 18, 19 when PC shows up. Does the politically correct movement mean that all the sexualities that exist didn't exist until 1990s? No. It just means that out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere, it just seemed like this politically correct movement came about where nobody was allowed to discuss anything. It started off super simple, you know what I mean? Be nice to other people. But that already was around, right? And so nice people weren't bullying other people because of their differences. So the Be a Nice Person lecture is for pricks. So anyway, the rest of us normal folk were coexisting already, because you already knew everybody had sexual differences and stuff. It's history. Do you know what I mean? Come on, it's history. Everybody knows what Greek people were doing. Everybody knows what people were doing forever. So it's already a known thing. And so if you're a regular human being who's not really judgmental. Okay, so I'm just going to go off on a weird tangent, right? This is why orgasms do not discriminate. Because it's such a black and white issue for me, I just kind of see it for what it is. Whatever your kink is, as long as it's safe, healthy, you know what I mean, and I guess consensual, then okay. And even then, it's people do whatever people do, right? When you get to the middle of your life, hence the name of the show, Midlife Virus, when you get to close to 50, you've seen a lot, you've heard a lot, you've had a lot of wacky discussions, especially when you travel the world, especially if you have an inquiring mind, right? You're like, what? Especially if you have experienced the internet in its entirety, like my generation has. You know, the internet showed up, and in the beginning they had some kind of control on it, and then it just went to shit, I think in like 3 days. That's what it felt like. So from a young age, Gen X saw everything. You search up Japanese bongo drums and you get anything but Japanese bongo drums. You search up Beauty and the Beast and dear God, right? And so my generation is just used to that. So here we are, it's like 18, politically correct movement starts coming in, and we start having all these conversations, right? Because you cannot say what you want to say, and what you want to say you cannot say, and these old taboos no longer exist. And so as we move forward and we understand that orgasms do not discriminate, we start to have these discussions, right? And so we jump on the slippery slope, we get on the gondola, we're up and down the ski hill. It's spring, it's summer, it's winter, we're slipping and sliding, everybody's having discussions, and now here we are at 2023. Yes, I just dated this episode. We are now here at 2023 in the middle of a massive sexual identity crisis, which I think is really weird. You know, just to be honest, I think it is incredibly weird, especially as a parent who has raised children throughout this entire thing, right? So Gen X was raised by a bunch of old-fashioned prerequisites and culture identities, pretty popular worldwide as well, right? So you had all these definitions of family, whatnot. So as the last 30 years unfolded, things started to be redefined and clarified and inclusive, and that's great. I've got no problem with that, because I see orgasms as black and white. Do you know what I mean? I've had to hose off the father and the daughter. You know what I mean? When you have dogs and stuff, like you're like, in your mind, you're like, why doesn't this animal comprehend? It doesn't comprehend my human ideas of sex and taboo and all that, and it is just following a animalistic primal urge to procreate and continue its DNA. Now, have I boiled down every human being into that very simplified class? Yes, because that's what that simple urge is, and that's what its effect on us is. That's what the drive is, and it's contained in all kinds of different containers. One container could be hormones. Hormones exist to create the sexuality of whatever corporeal being this bundle of cells becomes. Hey, you get back there. Get back over here. This mic is trying to run away from me. So for me, I look at sexuality very black and white, okay? And then I move up from there, okay? So cannot discriminate if everybody has that in common. What you can do, though, is you can clarify the discussion. So here we are 2023 and we've got, I don't know, like 1,000 ideas of what sexuality is. Is that anything new? I don't really think so. I think it already existed already. It's kind of like Kung Fu. You know, you can't patent a punch. You know what I mean? Punch, it existed. And so I imagine every human existence and every human relationship and sexual position and everything has already been done a bajillion times without, I'm sure, new technology. They didn't have sexual robots back in the day in the cave. You know what I mean? But they did have human ingenuity, and we know that to be true over and 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 over again, my friend. And so human sexuality is black and white. My questions now, though, circulate that, okay, so we know that. We got it. We understand there's 1,000 different definitions. We understand there are 1,000 different visions, missions, kinks, you know, conditions. We got it. And so now what we have to talk about is something that transcends the sexuality part, and we're going to talk about the motivations, because that's one thing that I don't think anybody's really talking about enough, and that is the motivations behind sex and your sexual behavior. Like, what are the motivations? So a lot of us, the motivations are very simple. You know what I mean? I got to chase that orgasm because I hear it doesn't discriminate, right? So there's that sexual gratification. That's one motivation, right? You've got a sexual relationship, right? You've got that connection. That's another motivation, right? Some people use sex as a control. That could be a tertiary or a third motivation. Yeah, but let's focus on the first couple. Let's focus on 1, 2, and 3, right? Sexual gratification. I got to slow down. Sometimes I speak so quick, my tongue cannot keep up with me. So we're going to slow this down. We're going to get all Barry White and sexy. Everybody listen. We're going to talk about motivation. Yeah, you heard me. Motivation behind your sexualization of your passion. Did that sound sexy, or did I just sound super creepy? I probably sounded really, really creepy, right? The fuck is this guy doing? I'm just trying to be entertaining. I'm in this room all by myself. If you're not watching the show and you're listening, I'm in a room by myself in the middle of the Pacific Ocean talking about orgasms that don't discriminate. Follow me as I join myself in a weird, creepy conversation. Some dude that's almost 50. What are you listening to? I don't know, some guy talking about orgasms. Yep, I just boiled down the whole episode. Anyway, back on tangent, or back off this tangent and back on topic. Sexual motivation. It's something that we need to ask. Are you in it to win it for yourself? Are you in it to win it for your partner? Are you in it to win it because you're a weird, kind of skewed individual when it comes to your sexuality? And yes, I am going to label it weird, and I'm going to say it in this fashion. In the public domain, there's a lot of things going on, right? And there's venues for human sexuality. There's venues for that. There's opportunities for that. There are certain times and places and hookups and whatnots. But in the general public domain, and these things have been delineated, schools, churches, hospitals, the mall, you know what I mean? All these places are kind of like, just let me be, come and in and out, quick in, quick out. I got stuff to do. I got to get home. I got a dog to feed. You know what I mean? Cable guys coming. I don't have time for distractions. That's why it's called the public domain. And so you have to ask yourself, what is your motivation if you're going to interrupt the public domain? So that's my question. As a dude that's in and out of the public domain, and I'm just trying to be relatively black and white, like an ant, like a bee in a beehive. I've got things to do. I've got a job. I've got a purpose. Things are going on. I have a life, which I get to have liberty within and enjoy. So I'm just running back and forth. And so a lot of these things They're just not meant for the public domain. That's why they have private entities and venues for all this stuff. So you can go there and share like-minded views with the people in those venues, right? A great example of a shared venue is a road. A road is created to share that venue of passage with vehicles like cars, motorcycles, semis, you know what I mean? Things like that with motorized propel, engines. That is a venue made for automobiles, and there's signs all over it that says, don't go over here because you're going to get squished. That's why we have all these public areas that have been sanctified with our shared frame of reference. You need to wear clothes when you're in the library, and you need to be quiet. And I know some of this stuff, you're like, what is this fool talking about? Why is he lecturing us on common knowledge? Well, I'm not lecturing anybody on common knowledge. It's just a reiteration of fact. So if we all understand and clarify where the common places are, what the public domain spots are, why and when and who and what, that's how we get these discussions throughout. And that's why people don't end up getting in arguments filled with hate, calling people names and all kinds of weird stuff. It's because you've taken the time to actually hear, discuss things out, clarify some stuff. Here's a really easy way to do this. If you're using the restroom in my home, shut the door. That's a clarifying discussion. I think it's all udgy and super creepy if I walk by and the door's open and you're taking a dump. I think that's creepy, and I think it's a private boundary of your private space that I don't want to engage in. You know what I mean? I also feel uncomfortable at nudist beaches, and that's the reason why I don't visit. That's the reason why I don't visit a nudist beach, because personally, it is a boundary I don't want to explore. But my point is this. There's a venue for it because everybody respects each other's boundaries. That is an individual dignity that we're supposed to afford each other. Hence, the whole reason of a shared public domain, right? So if schools are on the list, hospitals, churches, hair parlors, I don't know, just there's like a lot of them, right? Grocery stores, the gas station. All these places are public domain with public domain framework on it. And that is a whole thing of dignity. And you're like, what is he talking about? Well, no, we each have our own individual decisions, right? And so if I and my decisions don't match up yours, the common denominator is that we share the public domain, and I'm not going to freak out. Even though your t-shirt, has a picture of Bart Simpson getting eaten out by an alien. You know what I mean? Even though that shatters my dreams about the Simpsons, it's public domain, and whatever you got with your kink and sci-fi and Bart Simpson, I will leave that up to you in whatever venue is cool with that. See, that's how society works. That's why orgasms don't discriminate, and that's why we have all these wonderful rooms and regulations for everybody to do what they got to do. I think where we start to have a problem is where we don't give people their safe space. Everyone deserves a room unto their own private space, right? And when they travel out into the public domain, that private space somewhat travels with them like a bubble, right? And one of the things that we're supposed to do is respect that bubble. So that's why right now everybody is up in arms, is because their definitions of bubbles and that sacred space, it hasn't been clarified in the new era, right? The old era we knew a couple generations back, 12 generations back. We just knew the basics. Now, some smartass right now could be like, well, the basics was this system of oppression and that system of oppression. I have to remind you that oppression has never been 100%. Oppression doesn't saturate everything. You might think it does, but that's because you haven't been introduced to the truth of how things work. 100% saturation means that you yourself have also been covered in the crap. You have been saturated, sewered. You're part of it. You're in it to win it. And so it never exists. Chaos is what always exists. And that's the lack of insight from most people. They don't realize that it's never 100% saturation. You might think racism and oppression and discrimination and sexism and misogyny and the patriarchy and all the isms and archies and all the bullshit is everywhere, 100% saturation rate. It's not. There's people out there that actually think that all that shit is a bunch of garbage. I am one of them. Cognitive dissonance. Orgasms do not discriminate. What does discriminate is an individual's projection of whatever weird, wacky shit they have in their brain unto another. That's where I have a problem. Your individual dignity dictates by your very existence that nobody has the right to shove their shit down your throat, but you do have the right to your individual privacy and liberty, right? And nobody has the right to take that away from you. So that's the problem we're having right now. We have people in one lifestyle saying that they've been oppressed and they want reparations of some sort because they couldn't dance around in the light. What they don't understand is that the solidarity of not being invited to the dance party is shared by every single one of us. That's the simplification that you need to draw from the simple biological effect of an orgasm. Friction creates pleasure. Boink. So right now, let's create some friction. Let's create some friction so we understand what pleasure is, okay? So, if you are invisible, you've been oppressed, you've been discriminated against, people think you suck, they don't want to be around you, you are the majority, okay? And I'll say that again. Those who are oppressed are the majority. When they speak of the meek, and they say the meek will inherit the world, the meek is all of us. We shall inherit the world. We inherit it once we start talking to each other and we simplify our existence. Right now, there's too many boxes. And so we are in a fucked up attic, jumbling through fucked up, dusty boxes and shit that doesn't even matter. What matters is that we share an attic. So we're... I know, it fucking kills me. Okay, so you have a lifestyle. Some other dude has a lifestyle. I have a lifestyle. I have a thing. I have symptoms. You know, we're all stuck in the same bucket, right? So one would think that they're oppressed, say, because of their race. Yes, that would be true by the people that are oppress you. Racists, bigots, they're oppressing you. People with mental health would say they're oppressed because they're invisible and everybody thinks they're crazy, right? And they get gaslit, like, constantly. Yes, from the people that do that to you, you are invisible and your dignity is stripped away from you because of your mental health. Your physicality, your sociability, your economic status, your education, all the things that people discriminate against, yes, they are discriminating against you. Those people that carry those cultures of discrimination and bigotry with them, yes, they are discriminating against you. They discriminate against all of us. That's the thing that we all need to realize. And so what do? Do you hammer back? No, you do not hammer back. You continue to figure out your voice and refine your message. That's what you do. So, for example, for me, I have a lot of mental health issues, and the way I try to get through them is through expressing my vulnerability and my want for progress. You know what I mean? I'm searching for progress. And so when I tell my story, I'm not out there screaming at people because I've been hurt and manipulated, you know what I mean, and forgotten and, mocked. No. I've been down that path, and that is such a waste of time. And so, in order not to discriminate like I have been discriminated against, I just have to open up my mind and continue to focus on progress, right? So let's move on to another lifestyle. Let's talk about sexuality. Let's say you have a sexuality lifestyle, which the way I just said that sounds hilarious, right? It does. It sounds really stupid in my in my point of view, because I don't view sexuality as a singular definition of one person. I see it as one of the many things you are, right? And I just assume it exists within you. So I kind of laugh when people make it such a huge finite part of their identity, because you're like, you share this with everybody. We are all sexual creatures. This concludes part 1 of Orgasms Do Not Discriminate. And I want to thank you personally for joining me as I join myself here in every episode of Midlife Virus. Be sure to follow the virus online and stay tuned to new content as it comes out every week. Speaking of staying tuned, here is a message from our sponsor before our sponsors have a message. And now a word from our sponsors. Funky Puppy Productions. If you need a production done, Funky Puppy Productions can do it for you. Visit us at funkypuppyproductions.com. Side factor. Sometimes you just need to spank that spark together. It's been a long time, hasn't it? But you two still want to hook up like you used to. Side factor is made for humans, and humans are made to share their spark. Share your spark like you used to back in the good old days, remember? Yeah, you do. Let her remember, just like you used to. Side factor. Spank that spark together. Side factor. Side factor has side effects. Uncommon but not related to. In the case of the following side effects, call 911. Blurred vision, swollen tongue, hives, hot flashes, cool flashes, rash, erection lasting longer than 8 days, hypererotic urges, shortness of breath, gotta smack that ass, fever, chills, and possibly death. Side factor.
We've got the gear for whatever realm you decide to reside. InterdimensionalOutfitters.com.
All I know is that I know nothing at all. And it's because of this mantra I've been honest. I don't have all the answers. I can only seek the answers. And hopefully, together, we can find these answers. Because after all, we don't know anything at all. You know, I tried to sound super sexy saying that. And I sounded like a complete idiot. Here's the truth. I'm just trying to find answers because I'm getting sick of being lost. And so here we are. We're going to work on this together. Join me as I join myself here at Midlife Virus. Come with me if you want to survive. MidlifeVirus.com. This is where we go to find the cure for the sickness that invades our minds and invades the minds of others. Mental health is contagious. Come with me if you want to find the cure. The cure is out there. We just need to find it together. MidlifeVirus.com.